Welcome, everyone, to the Minions of the Zoo Tuesday edition. I'm your keeper, Skep, Tock, and with me I have Minions Prospero,
Hello.
Blind Press,
Hello.
and Jenna.
Hi.
It's a mob of women with old Skep Talk tonight, and I'm liking it. I like being the popular guy. We'll probably be joined by a couple of other people as the evening goes on, and I was. It's been an interesting week. I hope you all are well, that you're safe and you're secure, and snug as bugs in rugs in your houses, or in case of Blind Press, of course, igloo, and that all is well with you, because for 10 families in Colorado, that's their world is shattered. And I mean, it is shattered when a member of your immediate family, especially one who is well beloved, is suddenly killed. I think we've probably all seen that in our lives. We know, we've observed it in other families, maybe even had it happen in our own, and it leaves a scar that doesn't go away. And I mean, lasts for decades. Doesn't last for days, months, weeks. It gets better with time. No, it doesn't. It just gets older with time. And my heart really goes out to the people who were affected by this asshole who shot up a King Soopers in Boulder, Colorado. I'll talk about that a little bit because I have some personal history there. So I'm going to start the stream off with a little bit of raconteuring. I lived in Denver for a couple of years, the beginning of the 2000s. In fact, I was up there during 9/11. And I had my sister-in-law, the sister of the person I was divorcing at the time, but somebody who was a friend and remained close to me after the divorce, and that family remained close to me. Plus, I had several other friends who lived in Boulder. And so I visited there frequently. And sometimes they lived right in kind of in the center of Boulder, and that King Soopers is just to the south. Anyway, that was where we went shopping for food when we get steaks to barbecue or whatever. We would go shopping down in that area. I know that area quite well, and it's just heartbreaking to think that vicious crime touched that area. When I moved to Denver in 2000, that was just after Columbine. Columbine had been about 2 years before that. And the apartment where I lived was easy bike ride from Columbine. And between this and the tragedy at the theater, and now this, it just keeps touching these people, and it's eerie to see this happen again and again. Don't have much more to say other than the sheer ordinariness of a place like a King Soopers. I mean, we've all been in Kroger's or King Soopers or Winn-Dixie or whatever, Walmart. It's there's a certain sameness to it, a certain familiarity. It's not a place that we ever think of as being a sinister place. And for that place to be turned into, a house of horror with some guy who just goes in and he's angry about Islamophobia, supposedly. And so he pulls out a gun and starts shooting regular people who just, hey, I'm going to pop down to the store for a minute, and they never come home. They're murdered brutally. And a police officer who tries to stop the madness is shot down brutally. This guy gets wounded in the leg. He walks away. He won't be facing the death penalty. He's a 21-year-old, even though he looks like a 40-year-old balding man. He's 21 years old. He's soft. He's fat. And he's going to a high security prison for the rest of his life. 2 + 2 equals 4. I'll let you guys do the math. he is not going to. Somebody said on Twitter today that it's a shame that he survived, and I commented back that he is about to share that sentiment very soon. Every day of his life is going to be a nightmare, I think, and he richly deserves this. It's tragic, it's horrible all the way around, and of course, the commander in chief of the United States, our leader, our president, didn't use this as a political opportunity at all. He consoled the nation. He said things to make us feel better, and
said a full sentence.
He warmly told us that this was a difficult time and we were going to make it through together, and that out of respect to the families who'd been touched by this, he wasn't going to use this for political purposes. At least that was the dream that I had. I woke up this morning to the brutal reality that Joe Biden was already talking about an executive order to essentially go around the Second Amendment and start grabbing guns. And I just wondered what you guys thought about that.
That'll stop this, right?
Doesn't the officer being killed make it a federal crime?
No, that's not what makes it a federal crime. I mean, if you're going after a federal charge here, it would be something like depriving these people of their civil rights if they were a minority or something like that. He didn't cross state lines. I don't think so. Prospero, you might have more informed opinion than I do, but
he'd have to be a federal agent.
Yeah,
that officer,
he'd have to be a federal agent.
There went to take this guy out, and he doesn't.
He's not a federal agent.
I know he's not a federal agent. He's not a Fed. I get that, and he's not in the military.
That's why it's not a federal crime.
He still went in there with an active shooter.
It doesn't change the charges against the guy. Capital murder of a police officer, if they don't have a capital statute in the state, doesn't exist.
Right.
They didn't put the guy that conspired with McVeigh to death. They're not going to put this guy to death.
Well, I don't want him to be put to death. I want him to be tortured every day for the rest of his life. And hopefully it's a long, torturous life.
Well, he's very young, and he's liable to survive a long time in prison.
He's liable to be.
I know that doesn't sound nice.
In the prison.
But, well, yeah.
What were you saying, Prospero?
I said he's liable to be running the madrasa in the prison.
That's well said. He's relatively educated.
There will be people who bend over backwards if they think that this was. They will find a way. They will find a way if his claims of anger over Islamophobia and grievance and yiddy get any traction in the rare air of Boulder. There will be people that will lobby for this man to have all available assets at his disposal so he can turn into a prison imam.
Because he has fighting for Islam with him, and he killed an officer.
Yeah, and it will be the way that they will contort themselves yet again, even though they're busy contorting themselves into this guy being a white guy because that's necessary, and he actually is Syrian, I believe, by heritage. And after all, we all know that the Middle East is, when convenient, loaded with white people, but not loaded with white people when it's not convenient. Yes. Just like Asians change race in the blink of an eye or a political opinion.
It's a miracle.
Yeah,
it's like a superpower.
Lauren Chen is, I mean, she blinks on, blinks off.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. You can look at her one moment and go, oh my God, it's Chrissy Teigen. And the next moment you look at her and go, oh my God, it's Lauren Chen. And the next moment you look at her and it's, oh my God, it's Ava Gabor. I mean, meanwhile, people are calling her all kinds of racial slurs.
Right.
But,
But that's okay because she has white privilege, kind of.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. Because this guy was raised in an environment of white people, I believe, was that Tariq Nasheed's line? I don't know, the white culture race.
Yes, that was Tariq Nasheed. Yes, you're
There was
absolutely
so
right.
much stupid on Twitter today about that. That it was torturous. There was
It
just
was a
so
target-rich environment.
it was, but there was so much to weed through because you had the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
immediately screaming, haha, he's not white. Oh no, yes, he is white. No, now he was raised in a white environment. All the while trying to maintain the narrative that they set up yesterday before the shooter had been identified.
Yeah.
That it had to be a MAGA supporting redneck white trash white supremacist.
He could have been one of the ones who attacked Jussie.
It had to be, yes.
He was that kind of MAGA.
He was that, yes, and that was their narrative, including people literally betting their salaries, who
he's not
apparently
in
are not
Germany.
giving up their salaries today.
Yeah. Yeah, I put in a claim with that guy, by the way.
So I loved cynical Lindsay's pay up, bitch.
I saw that.
But including the complete re-racialization of the Middle East and determinant of whether people from Syria are Caucasoids or not. I
Yeah.
actually
Can I
saw that, which it's like.
What were you saying, Jenna?
No, go ahead.
As
Ani.
a mother who has adopted from the Middle East and has Syrian children, they ain't white.
Well, but that doesn't see. The thing is that he could have been born like Cat Stevens, glow in the dark, and converted. That doesn't appear to be the case since the family immigrated from Syria. I doubt he's a Sephardic Jew who converted.
No,
It is.
he's not a Sephardic.
He was born and he was.
He looks like an Arab.
Yeah, he does. He looks like
He
an Arab.
is an Arab.
But
Yeah,
Arabs
just
are
because-
white now,
Yeah. So
Oh, great.
just like Jews
So-
on alternate Tuesdays.
Well, I was gonna ask Blind Press. What are they saying in Canada about all this? Have they had enough time to react to it where you can get a read on it?
No, I. There's been some. Pancalo says there's been so much deletion of tweets on Twitter today because if it's come out that this person isn't a,
Redneck.
white, yeah. So people are deleting tweets.
Huh.
And, it
The gaslighting continues.
The gaslighting continues. Yeah. It kind of drives me a little crazy because we do have some self-righteous Canadians up here that the
Wait,
states and
you
their mess.
you do have some?
Yes.
You're kidding.
Oh, the states and the mass shootings, blah blah blah. It's like, you know what? Just shut the fuck up.
Amen.
It's like, you don't think we haven't, like, these people conveniently forget the mass shootings that have happened up here. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh, well, would they happen less? Yeah, that would be because we have less people. You fucking idiot. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Significantly fewer people.
I
in
hate
Canada.
the self-righteousness of that. So it just drives me crazy. It's every
it's
time there's a mass,
disingenuous
it
as
is
well.
very disingenuous. Every time there's a mass shooting in the States, there's somebody up in Canada who, tut tut, those Americans and their guns. It's like, do you realize how many guns we have, legal guns that we have in this country? We have more guns that are legal in this country than we do people.
You actually have more guns per capita, I think, than the United States does.
Yeah.
Need to check that statistic. It's
Yeah,
either
she
very
said-
close or you have more
We have a lot of
more
guns.
per capita. More per person.
And what's really pissing us off is that there's a push to take away the legal guns. Thank you, Trudeau.
Of course there is.
And
That mincing fairy.
it's fucking. He keeps going, look at all these handgun shootings that are happening. Look at all the handgun. It's like, yeah, you dumb motherfucker. All those handguns are coming from Detroit. You idiot. They're all illegal anyway. You think taking away our legal guns are gonna stop the guns coming through from Detroit? No.
Wait, are you saying that there are places on the border between Canada and the United States where you could cross through and get contraband through there?
Hell yeah. Easily.
Just not cheese. Hi, Eve.
Hi, Eve. Welcome.
Hi.
Nice.
Hello,
nice,
humans.
nice to see you this evening.
Excuse me. I'm not a human.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This my
Hello.
son.
Hello, humans and Jenna.
My son has been doing that lately. We've been going to the park, and I'll take Alex to the park, and he'll just randomly, he'll be like, "If there's no humans on the swings, can I go on the swings?" And I'm like, "You know,
If there is no,
you know, you're a human too, right?" And he goes, "Oh yeah."
see, I'm very much in favor of teaching children to speak in unusual speech patterns. For example, instead of teaching a young child to say the word "look," teach them to say "behold."
Behold.
So that way, when they come up with you with something and they want to show it to you, they want to say, "Look at this, mommy." They'll say, "Behold this, mommy."
I taught
And
my
it'll be
kids.
way
I
more
taught
badass.
my kids like that. I taught them to say, you know, instead of saying "teacher," I need to talk to you. I'd say, "Bitch, look over here."
Fucking hell.
So Logan, the other day, I went to the 3-year-old. I'm like, "Okay, I need to put your socks on." He goes, "Ah, embarrassing."
I love
I'm
it.
like, "What?"
Oh, that's
What?
funny.
I'm like, "What's embarrassing?" He goes, "My socks." I'm like, "Your socks are embarrassing?" He's like, "Yes."
Well, learn to put them on yourself.
Okay.
You know, before you came in, Eve, we were just discussing the shooting that happened in Boulder. By the way, we decided we were against it, and
Oh, that's good to know.
yeah,
Like that people.
We're very
Was-
progressive around here.
Adjust
Was
your
it so-
views accordingly.
the vote was disturbingly close. But yeah, no, we're against it, and but that it's interesting that I think literally, and I mean this is literally true. This is one of those cases where I'm using literally correctly.
Literally, literal.
Literally, I'm literally using literally correctly. Literally, the bodies were not cold before this had become a political football.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And Biden is up there. Well, I actually have an article from BBC. I was going to read just a little bit. It has to do with with Evanston, Illinois, which is a city just 12 miles north of the Loop in Chicago. It's the city in which I lived for 4 years when I went to Northwestern University. I lived just 5 blocks away from the city where the city council votes. And the city council in Evanston, Illinois, voted 8-1 to distribute $25,000 each to 16 eligible Black households to use in home repairs or as down payments on property. And we're going to go into this story in more detail later. But the reason I bring it up now in relation to Joe Biden doing things like talking about using the executive orders to circumvent the Second Amendment is I'm seeing a lot of strange ad hoc laws that 20 years ago, I don't think anything like that would have happened. Is that me just being an old man, or does anybody else see this kind of reactive, hey, let's take a really unorthodox and usually dodgy as far as legality and precedent way of addressing so-called problems that are mostly political in nature and highly debatable as to whether they're real problems. The similarity between this and the Second Amendment stuff is that I think it's highly debatable as to whether or not reparation payments like this are anything more than a cash pump for race grifters, as opposed to something that really is deserved by the people who will receive it. Now, the way that they doll it up is they find some people who really are needy, and they make a big show out of handing them a big check, big tranche of money. Again, the same thing with the Second Amendment circumvention. They have a shooting like what happened in Colorado, and then the politicians get together and say, this is a job for super circumvention. We're going to have an executive order because this is so important. We're going to get around the Second Amendment protections of the Constitution. We're going to take your guns away. And it strikes me that people are ignoring the way that you're supposed to do things and doing things in almost, and specifically the Democrats are doing things in an almost dictatorial fashion, reacting and really being done mostly for political gain. Does anybody get that feeling, or am I just crazy?
No,
am I seeing
you're
similarities that aren't really there or not?
You're on the right direction. You're headed that way. That's what's happening.
What do you
Can I
think,
just-
Blind Press?
BP.
She's
You're
not
muted.
there. Go ahead, Jenna. What were you going to say?
Okay, so as for reparations, I just want to say that the Asian Americans that received reparations because their cells were put into concentration camps in America
Yes.
was well deserved.
Right.
They were treated horribly. So, if a slave is still alive,
They were the
absolutely
aggrieved
give
ones.
them money.
They were the actually aggrieved
Yes.
people. The people
put
to
into
whom the harm
camps.
had been done. I know. Sorry. So because it had been done to them, you feel like giving them reparations was appropriate. I happen to agree. I happen to
This
think
was
they
the
didn't
least
get
we could
anywhere
do.
near enough, but what they did to them was just about unforgivable. But Prospero, what do you think about this?
Well, in regard the Japanese internment camps and that displacement, I mean, number one, you had receipts, and number two, you had a Supreme Court ruling saying that what had been done was utterly and completely unconstitutional, and that all their procedural rights had been violated.
And they deserve to be made whole.
Yeah.
Okay.
You actually had law. What we have is the 13th Amendment and then the 14th Amendment as the attempts to make whole
Do you want to
the victims of slavery. Well, I mean,
Right.
it's
slavery and
it's establishing citizenship and establishing equal protection under the law. So that there was no question that anyone born a slave here, born into chattel, they couldn't be doubted as an American citizen. So the argument against reparations has always been that the remedy was in the law.
Look, I have the answer. I have the answer to reparations. You guys ready for this? I love
Go.
this. African Americans should sell inward passes. Sell them to white people. They get the reparations. White people get to say the N-word that we so desperately want to say. Everybody's happy. And you can graze up the if you want it for like a week long, that's $300. If you want it for like a month, that's like $5,000. So like the really rich motherfuckers can be selling that, you can be buying that shit, and they can really get it from the richest people too. You know what I'm saying? I think this is a great way to solve this.
Especially since the market for those passes will...
And that way when somebody says it, they're just like, well, I'm going to beat your little white ass. Oh, whoa. Here, look. It's showing around my neck. I'm wearing a little badge that says I have an inward pass. Oh, okay, man, you good. You paid for the right.
No,
mean,
they'd be like, all right, now
It's
pay
win-win.
me.
Right?
I can see this going very wrong.
It is entirely sarcasm, Jenna. I'm not actually...
I know. I just wanted to share
Jenna
that,
can see it going wrong because she has her own shakedown artist living in her house.
yeah, that's exactly. But all kidding aside, I
No, but
really
it's like
am
it's a ridiculous
disturbed.
idea.
I really am disturbed by the way that politicians are going around the structures and procedures that we've had in place upon which the rule of law is based, and essentially doing whatever feels good in the moment and reacting to whim. My nightmare is that we end up with this country where we really are in a tyranny of the majority. where we really are
Damn near
in
there.
where we have electronic voting about the question of the moment, and you have hundreds of millions of votes tallied every second. Should we kill this guy? Yeah, kill this guy. Should we torture him to death? Yeah, torture him to
Oh,
death.
an American Idol style.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, we've already made movies about that kind of thing. What happens when
Bread
you
services.
put this kind of thing up on the internet, like, and say, hey, should this person die or not? Here's why we're going to kill them. Should this person die? You have
I'm
people
talking
So this
about
is
yes,
I'm-
no,
Simon
yes, no.
Cowell's fault.
No, this isn't Simon Cowell's fault. This is the fault of the American public.
Yeah.
By and large, it's all ours to bear. The
Hi, Harry.
Howdy.
suddenly a wild Harry appeared.
the man
I'm-
who is
Is he
Sorry
wild
to
in
be
Harry?
late.
No, we're glad to have you, and
Bro, I
we're
was late.
privileged to have you, and it is really
Skep feels the testosterone balance in the
It's
street.
Harry's turn to be late. Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
Well, it's not just that. It's a tribute to how desirable a personage that you are. That your business contacts wanted you, and we wanted you, and we had to compete for you. And I'm glad we finally won the battle.
Yeah, we don't pay very well.
Yes, we don't pay nearly as well as they do.
Wait.
Well, they don't pay as well as they should, but I'm working on that. Yeah, no, the expert wide area network security people managed to completely lock themselves out, and I don't know if I should be.
I'm sorry. So I'll shut
I
up.
don't know if I should be proud or hiding, because I think they were somewhat disturbed by how easily I circumvented all of their security and found a way back in for them.
Oh lordy, yeah. Do you remember the CD keys that you used to be able to make, where you could essentially jump into the registry and change the administrator's password? I made a living out of that for a little while. In Windows about I'd say this was really popular around 2003 2004.
Yeah, they had top people working on the encryption of their authentication database. It was very, very good. Now, luckily I'm not really a Windows person. You know far more about it than I do, but I do know what you're talking about, and I have a copy of said CD because I'm not an idiot.
Yes, the thing. Well, and just I know you probably know this. I mean, you have to have because of slight changes at the registry, you have to have a CD made for that version of Windows, for each version of Windows.
Mhm.
But do you know that approach, with one minor tweak that I'll be happy to share with you offline, still works. It's still a security hole in Windows. I shit you not.
Windows
really-
is not my favorite thing. I got to tell you, I understand why it's useful, but
Yes.
I'm glad there's people like you who know more about it than I do.
I
I know just
it's why
enough to
people-
be dangerous.
This is why people rename the administrator account,
Mhm.
and then they make a new account called administrator, which looks like an administrator account but is not really. Is because of this hack. But anyway, we jump far afield. Getting back to things, it is satisfying when you can be the white knight and come in there and say, oh, your carefully laid security here. Let me quickly circumvent that. There you are.
Yeah, the network guy was like, he said, "You mean that connects directly to the admin port?" And I said, "Yeah."
No,
What does he
You
have
want a
my
fi- you
knowledge
want
of
a-
computers?
You on like a physical serial connection?
While I'm not, wasn't in IT at my now former job, because I got fired back in February.
Ugh.
I
Those bastards.
I still knew that place inside and out. Like, I intentionally had been in the vault so many times there, and I intentionally did not pay attention to the combination, even though I could have easily learned it and known it. But I didn't want that responsibility. I didn't want that to be on my head. But I could have robbed that place blind if I wanted to, because I was in charge of all the books, never double checked. I could make adjustments without anybody ever noticing. I could have done
I
whatever
believe
I
that's
wanted.
Insider trading.
No, that's just straight up theft, because
Yeah,
it's a
that's
pharmaceutical
embezzlement,
warehouse.
right? That would be in no or yeah.
Wait, no, insider
anyway.
trading is one.
Yeah.
But we're getting kind of far
Stop
afield from
fighting.
what we were talking about. What we had been talking about was whether or not government is getting pretty used to this business of, I want to do this, so I'm not going to bother with anything like a law or involving the citizens in approving or voting on what I want to do. I'm just going to dictatorially do something, be it distributing $25,000 in reparations in Evanston, Illinois, or circumventing the Second Amendment in order to force people to first register and eventually confiscate their scary AR-15s.
They don't want to put these things to a vote because they don't want to explain their positions to the public at large. Because half the time, they don't have any supporting evidence for the claims that they're making.
Well, that's a great point, Prospero, because listen to just this opening little salvo in this Reuters article about Joe Biden. Biden, U.S. President for life, Joe Biden, and he will be president for the rest of his life, urged Congress to swiftly pass gun control laws and may take action on his own to stop mass violence, the White House said on Tuesday, a day after the second deadly mass shooting in a week. Now, wait. Let's unpack that sentence just a little bit.
May take action on his own.
Listen to what it urged Congress to swiftly pass gun control laws and may take action on his own to stop mass violence. He personally is going to stop mass violence. He's not going to pass gun control legislation. He isn't going to confiscate guns. He's going to stop mass violence.
He's going to go full-fledged The Rock and walk out there with a 4x4 and smack some heads.
Listen to the implication of this. This is a Reuters article. This is just factual. This is not supposed to be opinion. This is supposed to be factual. Then he says, the Democrat called on the Senate to approve 2 bills passed by the House of Representatives on March the 11th that would broaden background checks on gun buyers. And you should read how it broadens them. It effectively really makes gun ownership hard. He also called for a ban on assault-style weapons that look scary and make his woo-woo feel funny. Okay, I added that last part. Anyway, he said, I don't need to wait another minute, let alone an hour, to take common sense steps that will save the lives in the future. And I urge my colleagues in the House and Senate to act, Biden burbled at the White House on Tuesday. Spokeswoman Jen Psaki told by reporters that Biden is considering a range of executive actions to try to stop gun violence. That's all he's trying to do is stop gun violence. He's not trying to take anybody's guns away or make them register them. He's going to stop gun violence. Such actions do not require the approval of Congress. Biden, who took office in January, pledged during his presidential campaign to enact gun safety measures, but has devoted the first month to distributing coronavirus stimulus and vaccines. Okay. Do you hear how they've just paved over the idea that this guy is going to force people to disclose how many guns they have, where the guns are, make public the information of where these guns are.
You can't do that.
We're about 2 steps from being Russia or China.
No, we're a little bit closer to Nazi Germany, truth be told.
Yeah,
he thinks he's a dictator, not a president. He is not a dictator. He can't just wave his magic pen and make us all bow to him. He can fuck himself first.
If nobody stops him, effectively he can.
Well,
he can do anything he wants as long as nobody stops him. Sorry, Prospero.
If there's a challenge, which there will be immediately in federal court, because it is the federal executive taking the action, which means it will fast track its way to the people in the robes in the big building.
Right.
We have had repeated cases about federal law and the Second Amendment.
Is that the big handsome building with the Bible verses inscribed on the side?
Yes, it is. The shall not be infringed part keeps coming up in all these federal cases.
Yep.
It even comes up in certain cases in certain states. What he's saying, if a state were to impose that kind of background check that Congress wants to do, that might pass muster with the Supreme Court, because localities have had more leeway. I'm not sure it would.
The mandatory going in front of to be mandatory psychiatric evaluation is part of that.
No,
and
that's
I
a
think
violation
that's
of
a
HIPAA.
problem.
That's a violation of HIPAA.
We're not talking about disclosing what happens except your fitness to buy a gun.
They're making this a public. By making this a public thing, there is a.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm trying to draw out the
Yeah, but there's a grave risk.
Yeah.
For disclosing personal medical information, because there is going to be a demand for accountability for why people cannot get weapons, and then they're fucked because they can't say without violating the individual's HIPAA rights.
Well, HIPAA prevents you from
you cannot
disclosure of medical information.
Well, if this is a public forum in which these background checks are going to take place, there is going to be revelatory medical information, not to mention
also the requirement to buy $800 worth of insurance every year.
You're being forced to perform certain acts by the state in order to be able to exercise a constitutional right. That's the impediment. They're putting in an impediment of behaviors and fines. Well,
we do that with automobile ownership. We require you to have a driver's license.
There is no
require you to disclose your identity.
There is no right whatsoever in the enumerated in the Constitution that you have the right to drive. It doesn't exist.
It probably could go to freedom of assembly, and and derive a freedom of movement.
I mean, they've been kind of weird about latching on a great number of penumbras to the First Amendment.
Yeah, it's kind of a sunny amendment.
Yeah, and it's the fourth.
Not much shade.
It's the fourth that they tend.
The fourth is what penumbrates. But anyway, I just so activists say that executive actions Biden could take right away include strengthening background checks, giving money to cities to fight gun violence.
Yeah.
And regulating the market for, quote,
where does he get that money?
And regulating the market. And regulating hold on. And regulating the market for ghost guns, which are partially assembled guns that aren't subject to the same rules as most firearms. We're going to turn our nation into a nation of gunsmiths.
Yeah.
And pot farmers.
Yeah, it is.
Pot farming gunsmiths.
Yeah, that's a perfect combination. Okay.
Could possibly go wrong.
Where's he going to get the money to give to the cities? It's got to come from the executive.
I mean, it'll just be gun owners that just sit around and do nothing. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's
stoned again.
I don't know where he's supposed to be.
I was gonna clean my room, but then I got high.
Yeah.
I was gonna make a gun, but then I got high.
Yeah. I was gonna rob a 7-Eleven, but then I got high.
Yeah.
I mean, really, nobody would get out of the chips aisle. Is there Captain Crunch in here? I smell Captain Crunch. I don't.
No, dude, you ate the last box.
I don't know where he's gonna get the money.
Yeah.
He's gonna try printing more money, and he has to stop printing money.
He doesn't have the purse strings. Congress does. Yeah, the legislature does.
In order to spend money, Jenna, I know you maybe you know this. I don't know that everybody in chat knows. The House of Representatives has to put out a what amounts to a request to spend money, a request to budget money, and budgetary bills start in the House, and then they have to be approved by the House, and then they go to the Senate, and they usually work out a compromise, and that's where all government spending, theoretically, comes from. What I'm wondering is that once the money is budgeted, the executive branch has substantial authority and discretion to take money out of certain pots and say, this is an emergency, we're going to use this money for that. And they're just kind of a labyrinthine rabbit warren of laws that govern how much discretion the president has and what he can do. That really is an interesting legal question. But what has always happened in the past is presidents have found a way to spend the money that they want to spend, particularly on things like this that are high visibility, big vote getters, big mobilize the base. And, to me, I don't know what you guys think, but I think that being a politician in the United States is simply about staying in office, getting reelected, and making money while you're in office through basically selling yourself as a whore.
That can be it. I mean, the devil's
What is it
advocate
not
thing
that?
here. Well, I mean, sometimes they have other objectives. I mean, sometimes they do worry about their legacy or something else. I think most of the time that's their first, second, and third reason is just.
Oh, come on,
self-interest.
man.
Yeah, I know, but for instance, we've seen the growth of executive power through executive orders over the years. And you do remember there were issues with Obama overusing it, and it gets pretty bad. I mean, Biden has gone completely nuts with it. But remember when Trump was trying to justify this using money for the wall that hadn't been approved by Congress? Because technically it is Congress's job to appropriate the money, right? That's like one of the things they're supposed to do. But he said, no, it's an emergency. Yeah, he said it's an emergency and we need to do this, and so I'm going to do this. It wasn't out of some discretionary slush fund either, for this type of thing. He repurposed money from other
federal
things.
Agencies. It is from other federal agencies that the executive can move money around.
Yeah, that's a real slippery slope.
That's where the labyrinthine laws are. There are actually some laws surrounding that, and so a lot of federal regulation, believe it or not, that governs what you can do and what you can't do. A lot of real specific stuff, but it's essentially very easy to get around.
It depends on how you get your government funding. Yeah, I mean there are many different ways you can get funded. Okay.
Can Biden, just executive order himself right over the representatives and the House and Tom, Dick, and Harry and just say, now I have control of all the money in the world? Well, he can't have control of all, but can he executive order himself money for what he wants?
Not really. But what he can do is if he needs money to do what he wants to do to serve his purpose, he can look for ways to repurpose money that has already been appropriated in the executive branch. He may or may not be able to do that, or he can go to Congress and request new money, basically. Yes, that's what, in theory, he would have to do. I'm less concerned about the money that he'll spend and more concerned about the regulation that he plans to enact simply by saying, all right, any gun, even if it's a hunting rifle, if it has a stock on it that scares me, that's now illegal, and we are going to confiscate those. We will have a buyback program, and by executive order, that has to be funded by the states. So you all figure it out, but this is your order. You must do this. And then, of course, as soon as he does that, and I think Prospero might have a comment about this. Don't you think that there would be some sort of class action back against him that would throw that right into the Supreme Court?
Yes. Yeah, the states will move in federal court. on that because
they're going to say, hey, first of all, we have no money. Secondly, at least half of them, probably more than half, probably about 60-70% of them would say, we don't have the political will to execute on your orders, so fuck off. And we're not doing it.
Oh, well, yeah, and we think it's unconstitutional, and
right.
So we are not going to do it. Then it's Biden's move. If Biden lets
he gets the National Guard?
No. He could threaten to withhold funding from the states, and that's when it goes to the Supreme Court right away. You're extorting a state to violate the constitutional rights of its citizens.
Well,
I don't know. It could get kind of hinky because, they simply refuse to do what it is that needs to be done, and that is draft an amendment to the Constitution altering the Second Amendment. And changing shall not be infringed to be infringed at will.
But they won't. That's the thing, is they know that won't succeed. They know that if they do that, they will literally have an uprising on their hands.
That's right. So all they're doing is using this as a political football and waiting for the gun lobby group and the NRA and stuff to make all their arguments so they can point at them and say, see, they don't care. They don't care about lives. We care about lives. See what we're trying to do? But the mean old people who've read the Constitution keep stopping us.
Well,
and the public will buy it, because if you look at the discourse on DC statehood, it's the mean old poopy stoopy Constitution and what the founders wanted. And everybody's come up with a new thing about the founders didn't really want this because otherwise, we'd have mega Virginia, because they're looking at the land grant map where Virginia stretched to the Mississippi. Good Christ, they can't read the Constitution. They don't understand what it says. And they certainly don't understand what the Second Amendment says. It doesn't matter how many fucking times it's explained to them that they're all hung up over a comma and they're all hung up over the word militia. Stop it. Stop it. There are letters. There are the Federalists, as well as extant writings from framers about why they wanted guns in the hands of people. They made it, actually, I think it was Wythe or Mason, made it incredibly clear. It was in the event that the new government of the United States was as tyrannical as the last one. And people just scoff at that. Oh, ha, 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 ha. It's just fight tyranny. Oh, ha, ha, ha.
It sounds like John Adams, doesn't it?
Yeah, you and your assault weapon, military-style assault weapons. Your military-style critter guns. That's right. Well, I'm still waiting. The Jeopardy theme will play for 10 hours for somebody to point out an army in the world that uses the AR-15.
Yeah. No,
none.
It's a civilian weapon, and it's actually, believe it or not, a hunting gun.
Yeah, it's a varmint gun.
BTK points out something very big too. She says the thing about opening the Constitution to the Second Amendment, the change to the Second Amendment is once the Constitution is open for editing, the Constitution is open for editing. Literally every word is open to be changed. Yeah, once you crack that ice,
if you do a constitutional convention, you can do it issue by issue. There are two ways to do a constitutional amendment, but yes, the constitutional amendment.
Once they set up a way to do it, they're going to continue doing it.
Oh, there is a way
to do it. It's going to be a thing of, if the left is going to do this, the right is going to respond in kind. And it's not going to be pretty for any of us.
Okay, quick civics recap here.
Yeah.
That already exists. The method of amending the Constitution already exists, and it has their amendments. Look, we started off, the Bill of Rights was Jefferson's, primarily Jefferson's.
It's not, I'm not saying that they don't have a way to do it. I'm saying once they take it to that.
They've already done it. I mean, the 12th Amendment lays out the Electoral College. I mean, there are all kinds of things that tinker with the Constitution that have been amended.
I'm aware about what constitutional amendments are, Prospero. I'm saying that once I'm saying in this current age, once they actually crack the seal on that bottle and start trying to take it that far, in our current political climate, the response is going to be, oh, well, you guys did this, so now it's our turn to make a change. And because that's how it has been. It's been a back and forth.
Yeah, they need three-fourths of the states.
Yeah, let me just run through this real quick.
Ratify this. And
a convention to propose amendments to the United States Constitution, which is also called an Article 5 convention or an amendatory convention, called for by 2/3 of the state legislatures, so that would be 34 of them right now, is one of two processes authorized by the 5th article of the Constitution, whereby you can alter the United States Constitution. Amendments may also be proposed by Congress with a 2/3 vote in both the House of Representatives and the Senate. To become part of the Constitution, an amendment which has been formally proposed must be then ratified by either, as determined by Congress, the legislatures of 3/4, and that would be 38 right now, of the states, or state ratifying conventions in 3/4 of the states. 33 amendments to the United States Constitution have been approved by Congress and sent to the states for ratification. 27 of those amendments have been ratified and now are part of the Constitution. As of 2021, the amendment convention process has never been used for proposing a constitutional amendment. The Constitutional Convention process was last used when the Constitution was ratified, basically. And so they said, well, just in case you want to do this in the future, here's how we did it. And then they enshrined that into law in the 5th article of the Constitution, and saying you could do that in the future. But it has, some people are talking about holding a constitutional convention, and I think that's what Eve was probably kind of the shade of meaning you're going for, is once you sit down at the Constitutional Convention, you can sit and you can propose amendments and approve them willy-nilly, higgledy-piggledy.
It's more of because the attitude has been not to do what's best for one's party lately, but it has been the attitude of, well, the Republicans did this, so we're going to do something else to hit them back. The Democrats changed the filibuster rules in Congress.
They were warned not to.
They were warned not to. And then the Republicans turned around and used it against them. And then everybody wants to scream and cry and moan because it's being used against them.
Yeah, of course, the Republicans, Prospero, didn't the Republicans take it a little bit farther than the Democrats had? The filibuster rule was kind of damaged by the Democrats, but the Republicans did something, and I can't remember.
Talking about the nuclear option?
Yeah, nuclear option. How did the Republicans change that? They did something additional.
They did it with a Supreme Court justice.
That's what it was. They did that was the bridge too far.
Yeah, it was over federal appointments, if I recall.
Yes, and that's what everybody was. That's what the Democrats got their panties in a wad. We didn't mean you to do it for that.
Like, you did not specify. It was empty. It was vacant seats on the court.
Yeah.
And you wanted those vacant seats filled? Well, the Supreme Court's part of the court that we get to fill vacant seats on. So,
thanks for playing.
Sorry, you're the ones that pulled the plug on that one. It's... Yeah, that was the step farther they took it. It really wasn't a step farther. They just didn't have the power to swing on Merrick Garland to do it. They would have done it.
Oh yeah.
Do you think
the Democrats
would never have blushed at that?
Would you think they would have hesitated an instant to? No. Yeah, and now that you've seen Merrick Garland, now that you've seen what an unimpressive cretin he is.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's a man.
What a nightmare.
They were Merrick Garland would have been. Oh my God, he would have out-suitored Souter.
Oh yeah, he makes Sotomayor look like a genius.
He's the brown gravy of
yes.
Of
yeah, you're absolutely right. The
He's
thin
not
brown
just
gravy.
brown gravy. He's one of those packets of brown
Packets,
gravy
yes.
mix that you
McCormick.
get.
McCormick
that you
brown
get-
gravy.
Brown gravy.
That you've added too
Just
much.
add water. Just add water to reconstitute him. I actually have a couple points I've been holding off making.
Please make them.
So first of all, why have a constitutional convention when you can just stack the Supreme Court with people who think the right way? I mean, point one. But the more serious point is, and you have never heard me say this before, in all the time we've known each other, which is long yet not that long, I have never said the following thing, just for emphasis here. This might actually be enough for Texas to finally secede. This gun thing. This might actually be the bridge too far that could push Texas into just saying, no, it's no longer worth it. With COVID and all the other things, this could just be the final thing.
A couple of items about that, just to tell you a little bit about. First of all, what Texas will do is they will allow the federal government to criminalize basically 60% of the adult population of Texas. That's essentially what's going to happen. They'll simply say, no, fuck you. We're not going to register our weapons, and we're not going to submit to psychiatric evaluations, and you can just eat shit and die. Okay.
Well, that's their right.
They're supposed to obey federal law. And if this becomes a federal law, they'll simply say, no, we will not do that. And then they'll say, what are you going to do about it? And if people start getting hauled into jail, you're going to have police forces and municipalities who simply will not cooperate. And if Biden wants to stand on this that hard, he will have to send in troops to get this enforced. It really could get very ugly, but it will be more like Arkansas in 1966 than Mississippi in 1861, if you see what I mean.
So the one with the fire hoses. Got it.
Yeah, this is going to be one where it's kind of a civil disobedience type of thing, as opposed to an out and out secession. There's so many problems with secession. We're just too interconnected. I mean, no state is going to secede. Maybe Alaska could, maybe Hawaii could, but no state in the 48 could essentially secede, except maybe in a narrow name sense. It would be like the way that Monaco says it's not part of France. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But who does your electricity, Monaco? Who pumps your water? Who takes care of your sewage? Who defends your ports? So it would be that kind of difference. It would be a fig leaf kind of a thing.
But
I just had a thought, but it might be it might be a bit of a diversion. I don't know how.
We're all about diversion. We're all about diversion. Very diverted.
The other day, I was talking to a friend of mine, a corporate lawyer, very, very smart guy, and he asked me, he said, "Hey, did you file to get your PPP loan?" I said, "Say what?" And I was really surprised to find out that I could have just gotten free money from the government, which, in theory,
do you want to explain what that is?
Well, basically, it is a loan from the government, which you, in theory, will not have to repay. Now, this is the important part when I say in theory. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole second round of this, that if you lost more than 25% of your income, yada, 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 year to year, there's some conditions. And then you can go back for a second turn at the well to get more money from the government for essentially nothing. This is originally designed to allow you to keep paying your employees. But if you're self-employed, through whatever mechanism, you can file for this stuff and just get free money by not firing yourself. Great system. Now, I haven't lost any money during the pandemic, so I just wouldn't feel right taking it from other people. But the idea that I could just get tens of thousands of dollars for free it kind of makes my head hurt.
So
move
how
forward.
does that work?
Yeah.
You basically
Look, bitch, I'm unemployed.
well, there's a different program for that. There's different
Yeah, no, I
types
don't
of
qualify.
yeah. Well,
In Tennessee, I don't
apparently I
qualify for
qualified.
unemployment,
If I had known 2 days earlier, I could have gone to my bank and said, I feel like free money, and then free money could have just magically appeared in my bank account. Like essentially 2 months worth of what I pay myself plus what I pay for my health insurance. That's a lot of money.
This is another-
Can I have some?
But there's a
Were you
deeper
going to say
point I'm trying to get
Press?
to. This is
Okay.
just me setting up
Go ahead.
a larger point, which I think
Yes,
you'll
please do.
like.
Please do.
We can come back to this, but the thing is, the other piece of news I heard later that same day was that states are being prohibited from cutting their income tax rates if they accepted COVID relief money from the government. They've attached a string to that money that they gave for COVID that would stop a state from Texas or some other state from lowering their state income taxes. To which I just said, huh? I did a full Tucker Carlson.
I am gobsmacked, and I haven't heard anything about this. I am frantically looking it up.
I'm trying to figure out how do they circumvent the 10th Amendment? How do they get to control
Yeah,
the states?
The same way they
Yeah.
give the angry reach around over the highway funds. It's like, oh, we give you money, and then we get to just pretend the 10th Amendment isn't there because you consented. You consented when you took those highway funds.
Always read the small leather and
The teeny
leather
tiny
part.
print.
Thank you. I was looking for
And
that
by the
word.
way, I'm not complaining about not getting free money necessarily. In some sense, I'm actually kind of happy I didn't know about it because I probably would have asked Skep what I should do.
StreamYard it to some people, bro.
No, but I mean,
You mean
know what I mean. I
Streamlabs?
shouldn't.
Streamlabs
I
to
don't.
some people.
I wouldn't ask the government for money if I didn't need it. That's. I'm not. I don't need it. I'm lucky.
My Streamlabs is streamlabs.com/chaoseve. So I mean,
Okay, good,
Eve,
good. So
I will
just
start
deposit the
collecting my
money
Social
there.
Security and give it to you. I
What?
think that's a federal law that we're going to
What you're
break.
talking
But
about, Harry, what you're talking about,
Yeah.
Harry, is the American Rescue Plan. It has an act's restriction on states' fiscal recovery funds being used to directly or indirectly offset a next tax cut. Okay, and they are saying that it is vague and raises difficult in application. A broad interpretation of this prohibition may be unconstitutional, is what they're saying. Also, this restriction, this is a Treasury clarification on their statement the other day. This is just a couple of days ago. This restriction potentially implicates a wide range of tax decisions, not just rate reductions, but also federal tax conformity, excluding unemployment benefits from income taxation during this pandemic, adjusting standard deductions, or awarding discretionary tax incentives. So, states will require answers to many questions, but particularly question 1, what constitutes a net tax reduction? 2, how is a net tax reduction determined to have resulted from a policy change? In other words, it may look like a duck, but does it quack like a duck? Which potential expenditures could be deemed to create fiscal capacity for a next tax cut? In other words, how far of an end run are they doing? And how would offsetting a tax reduction be defined, especially across multiple years? I mean, this thing is okay. The U.S. Department of Treasury guidance will be crucial as states seek to navigate this new environment. So, what the Department of the Treasury is saying, the summary of all that is that we may have shot our mouth off too soon. More guidance will be forthcoming because, unfortunately, the intern who drafted the memo didn't think about any of this stuff because he was an affirmative action hire, and you know how that goes.
Well, I thought
Yeah.
the actual answer was one of the lawyers finally found a copy of it and brought it to the
Hey,
attention
wait a minute.
of the Secretary of the Treasury that you may
Yeah.
have just issued an order that is in violation of
Of the Constitution, right? Exactly.
Well, it's good they
So
have top
anyway.
people looking at it, but I'm just when I hear about stuff like this, I think, I wonder how many people might be unpleasantly surprised by the supposed forgiveness of this loan that they think they're going to get, and
Right.
how many different ways could this be abused? And the answer to that is a lot.
Yeah, the answer is all of the ways.
Yes.
This is the second PPP loan. There was one
Well, this is the
in,
second round. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one last year in April, I think.
Right. I could have applied for
the
my
2
first
week.
one, though. Yeah.
But
I don't need it, so why should I? I mean, other than free money. Who doesn't love free
well,
money?
but you just shouldn't. If people need it, then they should do it. But if you don't need it, you need to have some morals and not just
Yeah.
take.
Oh yeah, at least in that instance, you could not take the action and get the money. Where in the instance of people getting stimulus checks, they just
Harry.
sent them to people.
What are these morals you speak of, Jenna?
Yeah, Harry.
They're-
I don't think anybody in
How
America has this anymore.
Hang on, guys. Just a second. Harry.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, and I'm sparing you pages and pages and pages of this article, but they have an interesting question. Can California, which suspended certain structural deductions within its tax code, reduced its income tax basically, when it anticipated a massive revenue shortfall, it increased its tax inflow, in other words. Can it reverse those changes now that it has a $26 billion surplus? Yes, you heard me. California has a $26 billion surplus without incurring a reduction in its federal COVID aid. Can governors dip into their, quote, opportunities funds, read slush funds, to provide discretionary tax incentive packages to businesses that they're probably partners with? Or does that result in a dollar for dollar recapture? Does the decision to conform to the provisions of ARPA itself potentially run afoul of its tax provision by reducing taxes on unemployment benefits, for example, or something, or some other federal benefit thing? Nobody thought this through.
Nobody
This
thought this through.
patently obvious.
Yeah,
and
I
now
wasn't
they're-
sure it'd be good to bring this up, honestly, because, I mean, people talking about this is not a topic most people find interesting.
Just
But
see,
to
and
me,
I'm fascinated
the
by
threat
it.
is
I will-
huge.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this, and I could probably make a 2-hour stream with just me on it talking about this. So I think we'd be wise to not do that.
Probably. For the
real
sake
quick,
of chat.
Yeah, just
needs
to not
say
kill anybody
something.
with boredom. Yes,
real quick,
Blind press.
it is almost 20-1 for me.
good God.
So I need to get going, but tomorrow is Wednesdays with Skep,
Yay!
and we are doing the stream at 1 o'clock my time, which is 12 o'clock Skep's time.
Which is-
because
10 o'clock Pacific
which
time.
is, 10 o'clock Pacific time.
So
Or-
come join us.
Yeah. So we're gonna do that an hour later, just because I have a lesson with my orientation and mobility instructor. So
It's an excused absence.
I'm going to go learn how to get to a store. Yay!
You know how to get to a store.
I'm going to learn how to get to a new store.
Yay! I'm glad you're doing that, and I will look forward to streaming with you tomorrow. And yeah, of course, everybody, don't forget Star Trek on Saturday.
Yes, and I will be DMing everybody about the topic.
Okay.
And remember to check out the link tree, which is linktr.ee/blindpress. And be sure to check out the merch. And if you are in the States, you can get a mug with my eyes on it for exactly $20. It is very reasonably priced.
That romantic gift for one you love.
And the
Or you-
clothes are really comfy.
Or you can get Coffee Stream merch too. Yes.
The eyes of Blind Press are upon you.
All right. I will see everybody later. I'll see you guys on Thursday.
Okay, baby.
I'll talk to you tomorrow, hon.
All right. See you
Bye.
tomorrow, Skep.
See you
Bye,
later.
Bye.
everybody.
Later,
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
I think there should be eyes at the bottom of the mug, so as you finish drinking the coffee,
God, that is an
You
awesome.
should tell her that.
Eyes just
She,
stare.
I'm
I
going,
didn't
I'm
want
going to
delay
tell her that
exit.
tomorrow. I'm going to tell her that.
that would
tomorrow.
I'd actually buy that
Yeah, I would too.
for one of the kids.
I'm so freaking tired. I
BP's
got about
always
3
watching.
sleep last night. I was getting ready for an appraisal on my house today, and my house. I don't think my house has ever been this clean. I was seriously. Do you have like 3 minutes? Can you give me 3 minutes?
Yeah, no, absolutely. All
Can I just say what
we're very
learned?
free form. Just go right ahead, Harry.
Well, as soon as I'm done, let's let Jenna say, because I think she's trying to get something out. But just really quickly.
It's been 20 minutes. Forget it.
Okay, you can go now if you want.
No, go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
All right.
So
It's not your fault.
So I had a bunch of solar panels and fancy roof and stuff installed, and the appraiser shows up, and he's just looking at the thing, trying to figure out, I don't know what to do with this. So I felt like I was trying to sell my house. I was like, hey, here's where all the new hardwood floor is, where it flooded a couple years ago. And oh, look at this, and look at this. And, I was like, man, I was really trying to upsell this guy. And they're like, we really don't know what to do with all your solar power stuff, considering you have a metric shit ton of it. And I said, yeah, you're going to have a hard time finding comps. And he said the following sentence, which was just music to my ears. The bank doesn't like it when we do this, but we do have a process. Could you maybe send us a copy of the contract for the roof listing how much money you spent?
I love that. Use the it's called acquisition basis cost establishment and or price establishment by cost acquisition basis, and CMAs love the opportunity to do that because it's easy. Okay, and everybody else in the transaction hates it because it tends to inflate selling prices, obviously.
Boo freaking who.
Yeah, good on you. Good on you. So you
Anyway.
can crank your cost into it. It's sort of like getting a bunch of people together and writing a software package and saying, okay, bank, I want financing, and here's how much the software that we've developed is worth because this is how much we spent developing it. It's called capitalizing software, and it's now illegal, but it didn't used to be back in the day. Anyway, now I do go on.
Yes.
Please
Thank you.
continue, Barry. So
that's all I wanted to say.
That's what you wanted to get out? Okay.
I just wanted to say how happy I was to hear those words come out of his mouth, because I'm like thinking, this is probably the best possible outcome.
Yeah. No.
I don't think it gets much better than that. It's like, even if he gives me 80% of it, it's probably still more than I would get through a traditional valuation.
Oh, yeah. It's valuation.
Because of the way comps work. It doesn't pay in terms of the value of your house to have something much better than your neighbors. I looked out and stumbled into a loophole, basically.
You always want to have the worst house in the neighborhood.
In the best neighborhood.
I think it's the olive tree.
In the best neighborhood, exactly. Worst house in the best neighborhood, exactly. Smallest house is the way the realtors usually put it. But anyway, we're kind of gently changing the subject. But before we get away from the political stuff and probably into more personal stuff, I did want to just run through this thing on reparations in Illinois.
No more politics. I'm awake.
So anyway, getting back to the deal on this was the school, the town in which I lived for 4 years, Evanston, Illinois, and the city council in Evanston voted 8-1 to distribute $25,000 each to 16 Black eligible households to use for home repairs or as down payments on property. The funds come mostly from a new tax on legalized marijuana. Black Americans were disadvantaged by racist housing decisions. This is a BBC article. To be eligible, residents must be a Black person who lived in Evanston between 1919 to 1969 or a descendant of that person. The family must also have been a victim of discrimination in housing because of policies or practices in the city at that time. I would love to see the tests for this, and I doubt that there's any math involved. Evanston has pledged to distribute $10 million over a decade. Around 16% of the city's residents are Black. White residents in Evanston out-earned black residents by $46,000 a year, okay, per household. We're very excited to see the first national direct benefit from some of the harms we've had to experience from the past, stuttered Cam Howard, co-chair of the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, to CBS News. The more local initiatives occur, the more impetus there is on federal government to act, and we can get our hands on some real money, bitch, she went on. But not everyone has been supportive of reparations in this form. And so one of the black alder queens there voted against the plan.
She said bitch? I don't think she said bitch in the article.
She said she supported reparations, but said the plan assumed black people could not manage their own money. True reparations should respect black people's autonomy and allow them to determine how repair will be managed. In other words, she just wants them to get a check, not to have the bills paid. Okay.
Okay. I just need to don't make the racist comment because it's funny. Don't make the racist comments because it's funny. Okay, I'm done. I'm good. I'm muting.
You good? You're good. Okay.
I'm good.
Anyway, so the and what she says is that the impact over generations was cumulative and permanent. They were the means by which legacies were limited and denied. Okay, so a fair housing law was passed in Evanston in 1968, but evidence showed that black people were steered toward a section of town where they were the majority until 1985. It's actually the part that's in the far southwestern part of town that borders on kind of a bad part of Chicago, actually. It's true, they were steered that way. That very, very definitely happened that way. Hundreds of communities across the U.S. are considering reparations to black people, including state of California, Iowa City, Providence, Rhode Island, blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on. Anyway, the movement towards some form of reparation for African Americans as restitution for centuries of slavery and racism accelerated in the wake of the death of George Floyd last year. He's the new Martin Luther King. He's the Martin Luther King we deserve. The unarmed black man died in Minneapolis while detained by police, and this sparked worldwide protests. He was murdered by the policeman.
An overdose and COVID.
Yeah, no, he was murdered. They shot him 60 or 70 times on camera. That's the new truth. We have to.
I thought it was 1,000.
It may have been thousands, may have been 70,000 times. So anyway, we can believe whatever you want to believe. You can do whatever you want to do. But basically, this is a big cash grab, and Evanston is starting the ball rolling. It's one of the most liberal towns in the United States. Northwestern University is one of the most liberal universities in the United States. It fancies itself and tries to be the Harvard of the Midwest. That's its nickname. And in some ways, it was, at least until the University of Chicago got better. But I'm just sad about this, because this is going to turn into a huge cash grab, and it's going to, if you don't think that there's not going to be some resentment on the part of white people who aren't eligible to get this stack of cash simply because they're white.
Well, what about indentured servants?
You've never been to South Boston.
Yeah. That's where the Irish live, in case you're wondering.
Yeah. Well, I've spent a lot of time in Boston. I don't know it that well, but I know that much. And don't you think the Southies are gonna be a little bit pissed off by this?
They already are. Are you kidding? This is ridiculous. And they already are.
And there was already such warm feeling between the races in Boston. Just loads and loads of warm feeling.
They've always been close.
Yes, always.
Kumbaya every night.
It's not like there's any friction already there, and this probably won't exacerbate it. But all kidding aside, I think this is hugely divisive, and it's a terrible idea. And so, of course, Joe Biden is saying yes, full speed ahead, reparations. And what are people like Kamala Harris's family going to do? She's not African American.
Shh, we're not supposed to know that. Can I give Eric's answer to this?
Yeah, go ahead.
He thinks that we should take the money from the relatives that sold the slaves in Africa. So the black people in Africa that sold the slaves, we should get the money from them to pay the people that have family members that were slaves. So he actually probably has a better idea than Joe Biden.
People don't realize that slaver ships used to put in places like the Ivory Coast, and the tribes there would have wars with other tribes, and inevitably they would take prisoners, and prisoners were highly sought after by these Ivory Coast thug tribes, and they would take as many prisoners as they could, because those nice Portuguese men would bring them all sorts of jewels and food and interesting things, spices and the like that they liked, and plus great weapons, so they could go out and get more prisoners to sell to the nice Portuguese gentlemen. So yeah, that worked out well. People don't realize that black people were selling other black people to the white slavers. They believed that slavery is a purely white invention, but there were actually black co-conspirators to make it happen, all the way through. I don't understand. Anybody else think that's just weird to be tranching out giant sums of money to give to the descendants of people who may not have even been close to a slave family?
But they learned it from the white people, though. They weren't naturally this terrible. They learned it all from white people. Therefore, it's still all our fault.
Oh, no. They had slaves of their own. I know you're being sarcastic, but they actually had slaves of their own and kept the good ones. They kept the good slaves for themselves and sold the more marginal ones, or the dumb ones, to the Europeans.
Okay, never mind.
Were black men counted as a whole person for a vote?
Why weren't they?
When?
Oh, when were they? After the end of slavery?
So before women got the vote.
Yes.
I want reparations for women not being able to vote.
Kind of.
No.
They weren't allowed. They weren't allowed to vote. They were counted for population purposes.
They weren't allowed. When were they allowed to vote?
A lot of men got their voting rights. Well, God, in both Great Britain and the United States at the end of the 19th century, there was some.
So 18 something or another.
Snow says 1868.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah, and Snow's pretty knowledgeable, so I'll trust.
So
yeah, women didn't get the right to vote till 1920, right?
Yeah.
The thing about
they didn't get universal suffrage until 1920. There were women with property
they had local
who could vote
suffrage,
before
right.
that.
Right.
Well, no, women with property could vote before that.
Okay,
right?
what was it?
No,
As well as men with property.
not in federal elections. No,
Not
Harry.
in federal elections.
Okay, not in federal elections, but the point I'm clumsily trying to make is that nobody had the right to vote except property owners in most places, right? And then there was a law that said universal suffrage for men, so whether you had property or not, but there were still some women who were voting because they had property.
That's correct.
And then women got universal suffrage in the finest amendment, and things went very, very well immediately after that. You trust me. And then the Voting Rights Act really sorted a lot of this stuff out, and that was 1964. And that's really when, after that point, it's just like, okay, shut up, you're whining.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Sorry.
Well said.
Okay.
Well said.
My point to that being is it'd be intelligent if you got off the slavery issue and maybe you went for when you were treated like a human being in America. Not that I want to encourage this BS, but choose the right hill to die on.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of all this, I'm gonna kind of throw a curveball at you guys. I've been thinking about this. Now I was thinking I'll inflict this on my poor panel tonight because that's the kind of person I am. What do you say to the person who is of minority background in the United States, brought up in a disadvantaged background, maybe single parent household, just mom, you know, uh, working a job, just trying to keep food on the table and roof over their heads, and maybe not doing that all successfully, maybe in and out of foster care. So, somebody who who legitimately has no advantages. Can you see how they would look at kids growing up in a nice, stable household, being raised in a nice house, having all the stuff, whether or not, despite all the things that led up to them being in that situation, can you see how they might say, hey, I never had a chance. The system is unfair to people like me because there's no way for me to have the chance that those, what they think of as rich people, well-to-do people, as those people have. And they I think mistakenly identify it as a racial disparity, but really what it is it's almost cultural, and it's certainly economic. But they don't have the same starting place that even a lower middle class child does, and they see all these lower middle class or middle class white people getting such a better start than they have. I can kind of see where they might think, what about me? When do I get a break? Or do I just not get a break and that's just the way life is? What do you say to those people?
There are two
Work
parts
hard
to what you just said, right?
Pull
Well,
your
first,
boots up. You know what?
Yeah.
What do you say?
Sorry, I thought that was
No.
a
Go
clear
ahead. Go ahead. I'm
there.
done. I'm done.
But
Question
there's
posed.
two
You don't
components
want
to
me to
what you were
answer this
talking
question.
about, right? Everybody is sort of envious of somebody, and that's one part of it, and that's just human nature. Let's set that aside. But the other part of what you talked about was the idea that because of how somebody was born, there's no way they can get ahead. And that isn't envy, that's unfairness. And unfairness to primates, you can look at primate behavior with other types of primates, and you see, that if they feel that a game is rigged past a certain point, if you don't let the baby chimpanzee win the tug of war with the adult, at least some of the time, they just quit playing.
Yeah.
And I think that it's actually just part of our nature as sort of evolved mammals to have that sense of play and fair play. And when a person gets pushed to the point where they think that the system is rigged, that they can't win, bad things happen. At your best case scenario is that they just sort of drop out. Your worst case scenario is much, much worse than that, especially when you couple it with the envy. Because, humans can also be kind of like crabs in a bucket.
Uh-huh.
And they can lash
Don't
out
you
in
think
anger.
that's kind of happening now?
Yes.
They're
Oh
kind
no,
of
I
not
absolutely, I totally do, and this is the problem. There are a lot of people that do, and then we're just accused of white knighting, and it's not that, because there are, white liberal people who try to teach in the inner cities to help these, students out, and this is why we have school lunch programs, because we're trying to make sure that, there aren't kids that are trying to learn on an empty stomach, leaving the libertarian argument and stuff like that out of it. But at a certain point, life is unfair, and there really isn't a whole lot you can do about it. And if you're looking at where the blame lies, it's not society that's causing this problem. It's something else. It's more, well, I guess it is society. I mean, I was going to say it isn't the government or the patriarchy or white supremacy that's causing the problem. The problems are probably better looked for at home in terms of some of the racial groups we're talking about.
Well, the issue with the allies to the people who feel that they are somehow or another disenfranchised from the American dream, let's call it that.
Yeah, exactly.
The allies have made sure that they don't look at home. They've created a mythos of a systemic racism And because the argument was there is no legal system against these people, that's why they have shifted to the power plus privilege approach to the whole thing. Because the institutions do not have laws that permit racial bias like that. So it's the racism that they're speaking about now. When they speak of it being systemic, they are attributing it to everything about the culture that is white Western European. That's
Thomas
just,
Sowell has said a lot about this, right?
Yeah,
I mean, he breaks it down in terms of statistics and says, you can see what happens. These changes happened in terms of the Great Society, and then suddenly the number of kids growing up in single-parent households went up. The state essentially tried to take the place of the father. And then, of course, there's the deadbeat dads. I'm not trying to defend deadbeat dads, but the things we do to them, essentially we take these guys, grind them into a fine paste with child support, if you can identify them. And that guy's life is pretty much over. He turns to crime, gets incarcerated,
so
or
he can
commits
escape-
suicide or what else.
Yeah, so he can escape the child support payments.
Yeah.
Well, not always, because to escape the child support, sometimes you have to commit. Your license has been suspended because you can't pay it,
Right. No, I mean,
Yep.
they've got...
and then that's how it's a vicious circle. And I
There's-
feel that the welfare state has a huge amount to do with fathers not being at home.
Oh, yeah, aid to dependent children, too. There are a number of programs. I mean, this was warned. It wasn't just Soul that has pointed out what and how it happened. Daniel Patrick Moynihan warned that it would happen. He warned in advance that this would happen. Because it's human behavior. It has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with human behavior. Because, like, you had that chart out, Harry. It is across all racial groups that if you break certain common sense rules, like you don't graduate from high school, you have a child out of wedlock, it does not matter what race you are, your earnings potential shifts to the bottom quintile, let's say.
Yeah.
It's, it's very, very difficult to get out of it from that position. And, by enabling and encouraging those bad behaviors. Because they have. We don't address truancy well. We don't
Nope.
deal with high school dropouts. The education system is broken beyond repair. We are... See, here's the thing. We always wanted the shame of bastardy removed from the child. That was a terrible, terrible way to handle bastardy, to blame the child.
Yeah, it's not the kid's fault.
Of course, it's not their fault. They had nothing to do with their conception. But they were the ones that always bore the stain of it. And so by not getting our knickers in a bunch out of people having children out of wedlock for a very good reason, instead of shifting the blame from the child to the parents and being the moral scolds when it actually matters to be a moral scold, we heartily endorse out of wedlock birth now. We reward it with cash on the barrel head. And if
There's nothing wrong with it.
If you're going, nothing wrong with it at all, except the downstream effects that we have seen of 4 generations now of that being utterly permitted behavior with no eyebrows raised ever. No
But if you
questions.
have 2 dads who look exactly like Dr. Rachel Levine, MD, that's exactly the same as having a mother and a dad with, being upper middle class. There's no difference whatsoever.
There are ways, you know, there are ways to be socially liberal
Yeah.
and not stigmatize people
Uh,
and still lobby strenuously for what is best for children. And we can't seem to find that. We cannot seem to settle into. We can't. People are constantly saying, "Won't someone please think of the children?" But they never seem to be thinking of the children.
That's a good point. Jenna, did you have a comment that you wanted to make on?
I actually did. Dr. Keyes wrote, "Fathers are useless morons, don't you know?" Because that has been what has been shown and said. Fathers are not useful in this world that, you know, it's okay to be a single mother with 17 kids and 4 baby daddies, because you don't want the father at home teaching the child how to throw a ball or cooking Sunday breakfast.
Or to be a man.
Like that. Or teaching your son to be a man. That is,
Yeah, where you
and a good man.
Yeah,
We don't need men for that.
Yeah, where you see, you know, Sanguine has spoke of this in prison, and seeing the very childlike view of what a man is.
Yeah, a man.
And evaluating men based solely on their ability to intimidate or physically harm other men, being some kind of benchmark of manhood, which is why life becomes cheap.
And
to people like that, and that has fuck all to do with race. And the problem is that you bring up these things, and everybody immediately says you're being racist. Like Harry's chart, it showed it's universal across racial groups, but you bring that up, and you're racist. Well, no, I'm not. I'm saying
even if you don't
exactly the same in the Asian community or the white community. I'm not. Why did you think I was talking about black people? You shitbag racist, because that's where it all. It's. Oh God, the racism on the left.
Yeah, the Democrats want to make sure the conversation doesn't happen, because people might hear it and go, "Oh, wait, that makes sense."
Really? It's universal across all groups. Because if you want to feel a little less like a picked-on victim, if you see the universality of a life situation, that will help, actually, to realize that this is not
just a black thing, or just a
Hispanic or Martian or whatever. It's universal. But you can't, the minute you bring these things up, the Ibram X. Kendis, the Tariq Nasheeds, these race hustling shitheads, and the white liberal allies that they have, immediately will tell you that this is just cloaked language. You're just saying it's universal when you really mean, no, I really mean it's universal.
Are we still talking about the certain people have been disadvantaged in life because of genetics and blah blah blah?
Yes, we are.
But
please weigh in, Eve.
I'm gonna let Jenna finish before I do.
If if someone sees me with my not white children, it's, oh, how dare you? They're not going to learn how to be a strong black man. They have a fabulous father that will teach them how to be a man. It doesn't matter what color they are.
But he's not going to teach them how to be a decent race grifting piece of shit.
Eric's pretty good at that by himself.
Well, he maybe have a natural talent, but
he is.
But he's not.
He's doing it as political theater, but he's a little young and might get in big trouble doing it as political theater.
And we're working on stopping that. But he sees what these people are saying, and then he uses it against them. And
has Eve heard that he shook down the Ben and Jerry's people?
I have not, and that sounds fabulous.
Isn't it marvelous?
Bryce is white, Eric's black. Bryce went in first, and then Eric came in after. And they were like, "Oh, we're gonna serve Eric first because he's black." And so Eric went, "All right." He managed to get his ice cream for free, and then he goes, "My brother gets an ice cream for free too, right?" And they went, "Of course." And he points to Bryce and goes, "Well, that's my brother." There.
He let them wait on him first because he was oppressed.
It's called sinking the hook in the con business.
Yeah,
When working a short con like that.
All I can hear is ragtime behind this story. It's like part of the sting.
Scott Joplin.
Yes.
We punished him for it. We punished both of them for it, and did the parental things. But I'm still a little proud that he was able to manipulate these idiots.
That's what you just tell him, son. You really need to start using your powers for good, not for evil. It's okay to be entertaining, but don't use them for selfish purposes. Use these powers to help others.
So we sent him back to pay for the ice cream, and they wouldn't take the money.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
get woke, go broke.
I wonder if that broke their minds.
The fact that Bryce, this is my brother.
He brought back the money. He took the money. I wonder what they thought.
They
probably thought you were evil.
Probably.
We were doing the righteous thing, giving black people. When we see black people, we just want to give them stuff.
His white parents were making him give the money back.
The evil racists.
I think his dad has blue eyes.
Cultural appropriators and blue eyes. You can always tell the ones with blue eyes. They're evil. All the stereotyping that people do now on white people is the sort of thing that I used to walk in marches at Northwestern against because people were doing that to black people. It now to see blacks doing it to white, it just, the mind reels.
Everything old is new again.
Boy, ain't that the truth.
I don't want Eric to end up in jail, though.
I know, but poor Eve actually wanted to say something before.
I'm sorry.
Eve veered into Eric, the shakedown artist.
No, that's fine. No, I just keep thinking about this idea of how some people are more disadvantaged than others, and how life isn't fair and things along those lines. And I'm reminded of a conversation that BTK there in chat actually went basically camping with her this past weekend. And we got there Wednesday night, and it was pouring down rain. It was 10 p.m. It was dark. It was wet. And I made a joke to her about, I was like, well, I was like, yeah, it seems like it's really bad weather. And she said something to the effect of, Mother Nature has a really twisted sense of humor. And I was like, well, we've already determined that Mother Nature hates both of us, given our genetics. So, and I have this attitude of, when people start to tell me things are unfair or that they have a disadvantage that they naturally have and the society treats them different, grow the fuck up.
Yeah.
Suck it up, Buttercup, because nobody's going to hand you anything on a platter. Things are not supposed to be easy. Life hates you. It hates me. It hates every fucking buddy. And it's going to punch you into the dirt until you cannot move, until you're bleeding out into a puddle of piss of your own making. And if you lay there and whine and cry, yes, you're going to be beaten down. And so you know what you do. You look life in the eyes, you punch it in the dick, and you climb back up and say, I'm going to live to spite you. Rip and tear until it's done.
Life is the nice one.
Life's the nice one.
Universe wants to kill life.
Yes.
So mankind's just fucked.
This idea that people don't have different disadvantages. Yes, some of us have disadvantages because they're a particular skin color. Others have a disadvantage because they're trans. Some people have disadvantages because they're fucking a woman or poor or whatever, you know. But the idea that people don't all have, just because they're different struggles and just because some struggles might be easier than others, don't mean that people don't have issues. You know, my struggles aren't the same things that Harry has gone through or that Jenna has had to deal with. I don't have kids. Jenna's got like 6 million, you know, and she has to deal with things that I could not even imagine to be, you know, having to deal with on a daily basis.
You know, you make a really good point. I'll just interject a quick anecdote, if you don't mind. In 1974, I remember I came home for Christmas from college, and I had just spent some time with the what Northwestern calls an outplacement, or a placement office, rather, not outplacement, placement office. And the placement office essentially told me that with my anthropology degree and my background in chemistry, I could either be, you know, a essentially minimum wage lab assistant at one of the chemical labs if I got lucky and knew somebody, or I could work in anthropology. If I had had a master's degree, there were 10 applicants for every job that was available, and those were mostly at minimum wage. That's if you had a master's degree. I was graduating with a bachelor's. And I remember telling my dad this, you know, typical college senior. I said, you know, this really looks bad, you know. And my dad looked at me, and he said the most chilling thing I'd ever heard in my life. Frank, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I was a grown-up. That was my graduation.
Mm-hmm.
That graduation happened to me about December 21st, 1973.
Yep.
I was absolutely confronted by the fact that I better figure something out. And within about a month, I began looking into joining the military and deciding on which one I was going to join. And that entails a whole different set of decisions. But you know, and there were a lot of other storylines going on, not the least of which was my desire to be independent of my parents, and to not have them have control over my life, or even a say at that point. And making a long story short, that's why, you know, less than a month after I graduated from NU, I walked into a Navy recruiting office and took the oath, signed up. And I was originally going to enlist. And when they looked at my application to enlist, they said, "You've got a college degree. Would you like to try for officer candidate school?" And I said, "Sure." And there was another battery of tests, and I took those tests and found myself with orders in hand to report to CNET, or Chief of Naval Education and Training at Newport, Rhode Island, for 6 months of officer candidate school. Going to take a rank civilian and transform you into a military officer, which they did. And then it was off for 6 more months of training and then off to the fleet.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a real change from, you know, I showed up a long-haired college student. I remember I showed up with my, you know, hair almost down to my shoulders, you know, had the tire tread sandals on, no socks, and walked into the quarterdeck there at King Hall at Newport, Rhode Island, and which you can find on Google Maps, by the way. And walked in and said, "Hi, I'm here for officer candidate school." Just
Oh my gosh.
You know, I had the suitcase in my hand. She said, "Put that there. Stand right there. Do not do anything. Stand and look at this spot on the wall." They had a place for me to stand and look at the spot on the wall until I tell you to do something else. And so I stood at attention for the first 40 minutes that I was at OCS, and then someone came, collected me, and took me to my room, and gave me some cleaning materials and said, "Start field daying your room. You've got 2 days."
See, that's where I would have walked out because I don't take orders; I give them. So,
yeah.
All I think is of them thinking, "Oh, there's a hippie in our office again."
Well, that's exactly what they were thinking. Is like, well, hello,
but
hippie.
To bring it back around to my point,
yes, I'm sorry. I did.
My
sorry
point
about the
is
excursion.
You're good. My point is that when it comes to the shit that we all go through, we all have struggles, we all have troubles, we all have trials. Just because some of them are based around particular issues that are more prominent doesn't mean that they're any more or less important than anyone else's. And the idea is ridiculous and stupid, and I get really fucking tired of the same arguments over and over again. It's to the point I've withdrawn from most of social media. I check it every now and then and occasionally interact with stuff or tweet stuff out about my freaking Twitch live streams, but I get so sick of the same old back and forth and the same old tired arguments that people give of like, well, this is why this particular... No, it's not. It's not any more or less important than anybody else's shit that they're dealing with. And the only answer that you're not going to get the government to care. You're not going to get anybody who is an immediate family member or friend to really give a shit for the most part. Don't think about companies caring. Don't think about the government caring. The only person who needs to fix your shit is you.
Do you remember when you
You're
were
not
a kid,
wrong, Eve.
Do you remember
she's
when you
not
were a
a-
kid ever having a friend or somebody that you actually heard do the "but mom" kind of thing? That's what I think when I read that shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's the "man, I want somebody to
And
fix
that's-
this for me,"
and that is-
and it's like, stop it. You
Yeah.
know, there's no crying in baseball. And if life hasn't already punched you in the dick, I'm going to.
Yeah. And
Good.
that's why I have, I've said this since sometime early last year, that Doom Eternal has given me my new life philosophy. Rip and tear until it's done. Let nothing stop you. Let nothing stand in your way. When you fall down, you get back up and you fight again. And when they knock you down, you get back up and you fight again. The only thing stopping you from succeeding is you.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times are you going to get up? And your answer needs to every single time be every time. Every single time you're going to get back up.
We are the author of so many of our worst demons anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, we do not...
And our own successes.
Yeah, but so many people, it's just... How often I've known that I just need to get out of my own way. I mean, it's a lot more difficult done than said.
But Prospero, what do you say to a society that is breeding a group of people who believe they should be compensated just for being born, which is basically what reparations are?
Well,
I blame the
I know what
participation
I know what
groups.
I say, which is fuck off. And good luck getting the money out of me. Because you know my...
Pay your taxes, and the money
I
is...
know they've already got
You're
it.
done.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing is all of this is feeding the baser aspects of human nature. The greed, the envy, the gluttony, the sloth. All of it. It's as lowest common denominator as it can possibly be. Come up with a reason to be a victim and tell everybody about it. And all of us have been teenagers. That's a teenager's thing.
No.
That is a teenager's thing. And I don't even think it is sex typed. Women are a little bit better at it. But I've seen boys do it too. You know, that crap. And it's just like, I'm so oppressed by my parents. It's all that kind of stuff. The rebelling against authority, the complaining about constraints. But the weird thing is that it's like a whole bunch of people have elected to be perpetual teenagers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their children still living on mommy and daddy's dime, aka the government, and still whining the entire time.
Yep.
And there's no parent in the room. I mean, it's
You
like
know-
we're trapped with them, but we're not the government. We can't tell them to shut up. and if you say sink or swim, people are like, you're heartless. You just want these people to die because you're a racist, sexist, misogynist, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, I just want them to stop fucking whining. Please stop whining. There's so much background noise from the victim, the cult of victimhood.
Yeah.
It's just constant background noise of, well, you think you have it hard. What about? And you have Tammy Duckworth today saying, I'm not going to vote for any nominees at all until you get an Asian, whatever is Asian and Pacific Islander. I mean, apparently Asians get 2 A's. I don't know why. But and it's like, okay, good. I'm so glad to see that we have a United States senator who is insisting on race-based hiring.
Yeah, she's extorting the president of the United States, basically.
So, in other words, is no Irish need apply.
Right. Again.
Sorry, Sylvie.
Again, we just want Asian Pacific Islanders. Asians and Pacific Islanders. And it's like, and you have to replace Tandon with an AAPI. You have to.
Yeah.
Whether they're qualified or not, it won't matter. So, in other words, I could just like run down the street to the Thai restaurant and go, come here.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, that's kidnapping.
What were you going to say, Harry?
Well, I was going to make a joke that a lot of those people are actually busy keeping Guam from tipping over. Second thing was, I need to go to my. I need to slip away to go to my meeting, but
We're just about to say goodbye anyway.
Yeah, so let me just say one thing before I slip away. I think, and maybe I'm the only one who sees this distinction, but Prospero again this is sort of going back to what I was saying, and Prospero was talking about how we're telling these people that the world is unfair. Mm-hmm. And I think that the more dangerous part is they're saying not only is it unfair, but you can't win.
Right.
You can't win. It's
almost
to make
must
to
win.
Well, to rile somebody up by telling them the world is not fair is one thing, but to literally destroy their hope by telling them lies in order to get them to vote a particular way.
That's the evil.
Is so evil. There is such a thing as social mobility. We have libraries, we have public schools, and if you just work at it, if you can just stay free of gangs and teen pregnancy and drugs, if you can just say no to those things, because no matter where you're born, you can do that. You can do that. You can have a good life, but these people that go around and say no, you poor thing, you just can't possibly win because the whole world is rigged against you, and there's just no way you can possibly win
self-fulfilling
unless you
prophecy.
unless you basically put out a sex tape or become a basketball star or whatever stupid thing, and that is just the worst possible thing. If you have just even above average intelligence and a little bit of fortitude and a work ethic, you can go so far. Anybody can, and it doesn't matter what color your skin is. But they take that away from people. Well, they take that away from people. They strip hope away from them, and then once you've taken away their hope, then you try to give them something to replace it. And if that isn't a cult, I don't know what is.
Well, the sinister thing is the people telling them that they'll never, life has knocked you down and you'll never get back up again, are the very same people running the goddamn social programs. Is the government telling them that?
The only person stopping you from getting back up is you.
Yeah, but I know I'm obsessed with... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Harry, because you got to...
I was just going to say, but I do think, and I know I'm being extremely pedantic, but it's the you can't. Not that you won't. You can't. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the thing that's so cruel about it.
In order to keep their race grift going, they mustn't.
And I can't stay on any longer because I have a meeting.
Yeah. All right.
Talk to you
Thanks for being a part of this. We're saying our goodbyes. Come back for the after show. Come back for the after show. Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll see you in a bit. So that said, yeah, it is.
Can I just
go ahead?
add, as a parent, I'm not raising children, I'm raising future adults. My job is to let them fall, but also teach them how to handle situations where
You're having to teach them to get back up again, and that you're not going to help them.
yeah, I love my children. I can't always be there for them. I can't always clean up their
So
messes.
you have to
If they're
teach them
grown
to be
adults,
independent. You have to make
yes,
sure that
thank
they can
you.
succeed on their own. I understand exactly where you're going, and as a parent myself, you and I have talked about this at length on just
Yeah,
one-on-one, and we agree right down the line on this. Most important thing, the duty that a parent has to their children, is to make them not need the parents anymore. You still have the relationship, still love your parents and all that stuff, but not to be dependent upon them, to be a self-sufficient adult capable of going out and building a life for themselves.
yeah, they
That's
need
the,
to be.
that's the most important thing a parent does for a child, in my opinion. So, but that said, it is that time to send it around the horn, gang, one time, and get the last words for the evening. And I'll start with Chaos Eve this evening.
Final words is the only thing keeping you on the ground is your fucking lazy ass. So get up. Like seriously, I've said it before. When it came to when I do yoga, I learned pretty quickly, like within like 3 months. My teacher had a class where it's called Breaking Through Your Excuses.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, today is not about excuses. Today is not about I can't. It is about I can. How far can you go? Hold that pose until you fall on your face. See how far you can push yourself. And in that session, I ended up collapsed on my mat in a pool of my own sweat, crying because I had just pushed myself so physically and emotionally past my limits. But I went further than anything I ever thought I could do.
Yay.
And because of that, and because of so many other things that have happened over the past few years, I've realized that the only thing that stops me from succeeding is me. The world doesn't stop me. It just puts roadblocks in my way, and I have to be the one to decide that I'm going to find the strength to climb over them.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you do too. Everyone, you can do that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. That's important. That's good information, and it's important. I thank you for putting that so beautifully, so eloquently, really. Send it over to Jenna.
I'm gonna go with stop with excuses. Find out. Use I can because of this. Not I can't because of that.
All right.
Pretty much a layman's term of what Eve said.
I like it. I love the positivity. Thank you, too, for being here tonight. And my wing woman, Prospero, the wind beneath my wings.
Oh, good God.
Frequently, the wind beneath the show's wings.
I've added another book that is a must in
What's that?
In literature for raising responsible adults, beyond Aesop's fables. The Little Engine That Could needs to be put back in as something that needs to be read until it's understood. It's it seems silly to people our age, Skep.
Mm-hmm.
The whole I think I can. But those used to be the stories.
Yeah.
Those used to be the stories that people were told. And yes, a lot of them are pie in the sky and a little utopian, but it gave people something to shoot for.
Yep.
And people who are optimistic and think that they can overcome obstacles that are in their way, that trust in their own strength and trust in what I still think is true, which is out there somewhere, not on the social media universe, the neighborhood you live in, the community, the physical community that you dwell in, that there are a whole lot more good people out there than there are bad.
Yeah.
And there are people who will, when they see you strive to overcome things, every now and then, they'll walk alongside you.
Absolutely.
They're impressed by the strength and the hunger of the individual to succeed on their own.
That's right. That's where leadership comes from. Thank you for saying that. And but with that, gang, I want to thank my panel for coming out and sharing a couple of hours with me. Thank you, chat, for coming out and listening to us. We do this for you. I'm going to close with just actually a few comments, several comments actually, not my usual quotations. I was struck by the difference in personalities, approaches, and really success levels between two people with very similar sounding names, Elon and Ilhan. Ilhan Omar is a race grifting Congress creature woman. I think it identifies as woman, who is basically running a con on the American people and on the people in her district, and is elected to. She's one of the most corrupt human beings alive. And Elon Musk is an amazing success. He not only thinks outside the box, he designs different boxes and then sets them on fire. He's an amazing guy. He's successful, and he takes chances. He's prudent. He's thoughtful, and he's everything, in my opinion, an American should be. He's just almost too good to be true. So be like Elon, not Ilhan. But what I wanted to close with was something that happened. Eve, you got to see the fraternity house that I lived in, and just before I graduated, I went from that house to being in uniform in less than 45 days. That was a real change for me in many ways. And from there, after 6 months of training at Newport, Rhode Island, I went down for 6 months of school, advanced training in shipboard supply management in Athens, Georgia, and that was a very interesting time. I got to know one of my professors there, and that's what we called them, professors. And he was a lieutenant. His name was Mike Jenkins. I'll never forget the guy. And he taught me 3 successful rules. This was part of his shtick. When he came in, he gave these 3 rules for being a successful officer in the Navy. The first rule was don't get in a pissing contest with a stud horse. The second rule was never tell a son of a bitch that you know he's a son of a bitch. And the third rule was don't take yourself so goddamn seriously. And I have found that those 3 rules have served me very well in life. And frequently when I was in trouble or in a bad situation, very often, not always, but very often, it was because I had violated one of those rules. So don't get in pissing contests with stud horses. Don't tell son of a bitch that you know he's a son of a bitch. And don't take yourself so goddamn seriously. And that is really, those are words to live by, my friends. And they've served me well. I just like to pass along the wisdom of Lieutenant Jenkins to you guys. So with that, we're going to close it out. Thank you all for being a part of this. Good night, everybody. The zoo is closed.
Good night.